Jennifer Welsh of the I've Had It podcast. Great to have you. Great to meet you.
It's so lovely to meet you guys, and thank you so much for inviting me to come on. Today is my birthday, and I'm sharing it with you.
Oh, happy birthday.
Shout out to you. Happy
We
birthday. Thanks for
apologize. You have to
celebrating
spend it with us. Yeah.
That's
Well,
fantastic,
on our
though.
podcast, I've had it. One of my main grievances is when people make a big deal of their birthday and they have a
Thank
birthday
you.
month
We're
or
the
birthday.
same.
Thank you.
I wake up, I push through my birthday. So
It's one thing if your like family and friends want to celebrate, or like one of the big milestones, but I find it's such a red flag when people want to, like adult people want to throw a big birthday celebration for themselves. I just find it to be so weird and narcissistic. Like, when this came up was actually in the context of the Jeffrey Epstein birthday book. It's like, you should have known right away that there was something weird going on with this guy.
immediately, that's absolutely nuts. And then the whole people who say it's my birthday month and they're over the age of 25, I think that's a super duper red flag.
Well, anyway, we're happy to celebrate your birthday with you.
Yeah.
Just give our audience, because I want to ask you about the Rahm Emanuel interview that you did. We'll get to that in a minute. But just for our audience, give us a sense of like who you are, where you came from, why you started the podcast with your buddy Angie.
Okay, so I was born in Dallas, Texas, and lived there until about third grade. And then my family moved to Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. And I grew up in the suburbs of Oklahoma City, attended University of Oklahoma. I've been in Oklahoma pretty much all of my life since I was 8 years old. Unlike all of my peers in Oklahoma, I was raised by liberal atheists. And so I have spent a lot of my time in Oklahoma combating being saved by evangelical Christian nationalists. And it is a very real thing in the Bible Belt. And so my mother is a voracious reader. She's very intellectual. And so we would always have these really deep conversations. Now, podcasting is my side hustle. I'm really an interior designer and have been for 25 years, and I do projects all over the United States. And Angie and I decided we were on a Bravo show, a Bravo TV show, and it wasn't like a housewives thing. It was more about our friendship. And then the second season was about my interior design career. And our kids were like, "You guys are still super popular on Instagram. A lot of people still like you. You should do a podcast." I thought, well, every asshole has a podcast, but
True.
why not? We'll try it. What the hell? So we did. And I've always been super outspoken about my politics, and I've always been this way. Angie was raised Southern Baptist, Hellfire Damnation, Republican, very patriarchal household, and she deconstructed her faith and switched, political ideologies in her adulthood when the Jesus curriculum. She did everything dutifully that she was supposed to do, made good grades, was a good girl, went to church, went to Bible study. Despite all of that, you know, hammered dog shit fell out of the sky on her life. And I was the
Yeah.
friend that was kind of the more realistic one. So when we started doing the podcast, I can't help but talk about politics because I see how horrible Republican policies are firsthand all day, every day. So I always
Mm.
speak out about them. And it's really been fun to do this with Angie, whom I call Pumps, short for Angelina Pumpkin Tina. I've called her that for years. But it's fun to see Pumps evolve and find her voice in this because I think she is a far more credible messenger than I am because she was in the Death Star. She was
Well,
indoctrinated in it.
I think you're both extraordinary because, first of all, it really takes a special person to be surrounded by something different. And even if you maintain your own, your own sort of moral compass, not to just kind of keep quiet. Like, I'm not going to say anything. I'm not going to speak out. I'm not going to rock the boat. That's very clearly not you. And you were a big part. I read your book, by the way. What's it called? It's called When Life Gives You Shit Sandwiches. What's it called?
Life is a lazy Susan of
Of
shit
shit
sandwich.
sand. There we go. People should check out the book. But you were part of Angie having her own awakening. And then I think she's an extraordinary person because I think it's very difficult. She had a core identity that she had to completely upend. That's a very difficult thing to do. That goes beyond like, oh, I read an article and learned a new fact. That's like, oh, I had to completely reform my whole way of thinking about the world, the whole way that I've been raised, my whole self-conception of who I even am and how I fit in that. And I think it's part of what makes your friendship so compelling and what makes the show so compelling is because you both bring some extraordinary qualities to the table.
Yeah, and with that, with Angie, there's a grief involved in that. And it wasn't that long ago that she called me. She quit talking about religion with me a long time ago. Originally, she tried to get me saved, worried that I was going to go to hell. I mean, it's like my experience in the Bible Belt. And finally, it's just like, I love you so much. We have great chemistry. Our kids are best friends, but I don't want to talk about that with you. So she stopped trying to save me. And then she quit talking about religion altogether. And then I remember it. I was sitting in this room right here, which used to be my interior design office. And now we made it into our recording studio. But she called me and she said, "Hey, I just got out of a session with my therapist and I have to talk to you." I said, "What is it?" And she said, "I thought about when my dad died that, I don't think there's heaven." And I was like, "You don't think he's going to heaven or you don't think there's heaven?" And she said, "I don't think there's a heaven." I mean, my jaw was on the floor because she was my most evangelical friend. All of my other friends were maybe Christian light, maybe agnostic or gay men. And I was just shocked as shit when she said that. And she started crying.
Mm.
And I called my mother afterwards because my mother had always said, my mother has this great Texas accent. She said, "Darling, I love Angie and everything, but as y'all get older, studies show that she'll get more religious, and I'm sure your friendship will probably fade." So I called my mother immediately and tell her about it. And she said, "Oh, this is a huge development, Jennifer." And I said, she started crying. And my mom said, "Well, there's a real grief involved in this. I've been reading about it and blah, blah." And so
Huh.
it's been interesting to see her find herself because her life was scripted for her by
Mm,
patriarchal structures, by religious Christian structures. This is who you have to be. All agency and autonomy was removed from her because if she didn't follow the script that was written for her, then she would be considered a bad girl. And she
yeah.
wanted to be a good girl. So it's been, and I just love her so much. She is such an amazing woman. And now that we share a lot of the same ideology, it's brought us even closer. And we've been so close for, 25 plus years.
It's interesting, just like thinking about the regional difference. So I was born and raised in New York, and my mom is I would say she's solidly Catholic. I don't know if I'd use the word devout, but she goes to church every week. But when I think of my mom, in her heart of hearts, I feel like she is agnostic. Like if she was being honest, she would say, "I have no idea if there's a heaven or not, and I have no idea if I'm doing the right thing." And I feel like there's a bit of a regional difference there where you're talking about in Oklahoma, it's like, no, you actually have to believe this. Whereas in New York, she was, she signed up, but didn't really follow through completely.
Yeah, so I found Catholics to be far more likable in my childhood and adulthood than evangelicals because of what you just said. It's people sometimes are culturally Catholic, like they're
Mm.
maybe culturally Jewish, like Larry David, but he's not really like a practicing Jew. I found a lot of my Catholic friends didn't take the Bible literally. Angie, on the other hand, literally said to me one day, we had picked up our kids from like a Mother's Day out thing and we're taking them to a pizza bar, nutrition first, and
Mm.
all you can eat pizza buffet. And she goes, "Bible study was so interesting. You should have come." She looked at me, and this woman has a law degree, you guys. She's not a dumbass.
Mm.
She looks at me and says, "Did you know that people used to live to be 900 years old?" And I go, "Angie, that never fucking happened. It never happened." She's, "Well, it says it in the Bible." I said, "It didn't fucking happen, Angie. People live longer now because of two things, filtered water and modern
Yeah.
medications." Well, maybe
Antibiotics.
there
Yeah.
wasn't disease back then. Maybe there wasn't it, and I just said, it's just crazy. Like she believed the earth was 5,000 years old. But here's the important part about this type of evangelical Christianity, which I think set the psychological soil for Trumpism,
Mhm.
is if you critically think, that is a sin. And so critical thinking is very painful for these people. Like whenever Angie and I would have these conversations, because she went to law school, which is all about critical thinking. I could see that it was painful for her, but she kept slowly kind of bringing it up. She would be the one that would bring it up to me, and then I would, bat it down. But Catholics were far more, if you can imagine, I mean, far more desirable as friends for me than evangelicals.
Expand on what you just said about how you feel like that evangelical culture helped lay the groundwork with Trump, because I certainly see some of that too. And what you're describing is essentially like cult thinking, where it's irrefutable. There's also, that core identity element where it's just like, this is who I am. And for a lot of hardcore Trump, MAGA people, like, this is the team I'm on. This is my community. This is who I am, which makes it much more difficult to sort of destabilize this belief system, no matter how insane and no matter how intelligent the person you're dealing with may be.
Okay, so with evangelical Christians, they cannot question. It's blind obedience. What does Donald Trump require? Blind obedience and loyalty. And if you think about Trump, think about this guy. He's a total evangelical preacher. He has the hair, swirled around,
Mhm.
the fake tan, the veneers. He's a grifter. He is abusive while at the same time tells you he loves you. He's constantly identifying evil versus good. Very simple minded thinking, binary thoughts. That's evangelical Christianity. I mean, growing up, you guys, I was a cheerleader, and I'm like a cheerleader and on Pom Squad. And all of my friends were these kind of like mega church evangelicals. This is the suburbs of Oklahoma City. Oklahoma
Mhm.
City is pretty purple, but I grew up in the suburbs. And I remember one night we were having a slumber party, and this girl, this friend of mine, her name's Shonda, and she went to some whacked out tongue talking church. She
Mhm.
starts talking about spiritual warfare, good versus evil. And I'm like, well, what is that? And she's like right now, Jennifer, as we're sitting here, there are angels fighting over you and demons fighting over you. And the demons always win with your family because y'all are atheists. And I'm just like, this is fucking crazy. It wasn't just her, it was all of them. The thing about Shonda that was so fascinating to me, okay, so everybody was wanting to get me saved. I went by Jenny in high school, like, we got to get Jenny saved. So Shonda's like, you got to go to church, you got to get saved or you're going to burn in hell. Well, that sounded really scary, right? So I tell my mom's like, you're not going to that church. Of course, I disobeyed my mother like any teenager does, and I go to church. So imagine my upbringing. I would have gotten in trouble for going to church. Nonetheless, I ride with Shonda and her mother, Debbie, to this church. It's called Crossroads Cathedral. It's a big, giant mega church, horrible architecture, but I digress. Anyway, we're in the car and Debbie worked. This was a working class family. My parents were more like upper middle class. And I
Mhm.
remember how difficult it was for Shonda's parents to pay for cheerleading camp, for extracurricular activities. Like, it was really difficult. And oftentimes my mother would help pay for her. So we're on our way to the church. We go to the gas station. It was back when they had like leaded and unleaded and regular. And I think Debbie said, Jennifer, put in $5 regular gas. And so we went to this cup in the car, and it was full of all these coins and a $20 bill wrapped up at the top of it. And this is probably like 86. $20 was a lot of money back then. So I said, I'll run the 20 in for the $5 in gas. And Debbie said, no, 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 no. That's for the church. Count it out and change. And I was like
Oh,
13 years
wow.
old. And I thought,
Wow.
wow. So then we get to the church, and this preacher pulls up in a white Rolls Royce, lives in this big white nouveau riche
Mm.
mansion, decorated Mar-a-Lago, a la Mar-a-Lago, French
Mhm.
wannabe Marie Antoinette style, right? And then his wife gets out, and she's got on this white mink coat, and they go and they get on stage and they start talking in tongues and thumping their Bibles. It scared the shit out of me. I never went back to church since then, went home and told on myself to my mother.
Mhm.
But my point is, they are primed to fight for this preacher who is clearly a liar, who is clearly a thief,
Mm.
to give him the $20 when he pulls up in a Rolls Royce. Who else does this? Donald Trump is doing this right now with his online flea market. He's got all those riffraffs and knickknacks, cryptos and Bibles and shoes and watches, and all that shit that he, peddles. And this is so familiar to all of them. And if you look
Mhm.
at the Bible Belt states, and megachurch culture has really kind of taken off in other suburbs, even in blue states. And I think we have to start talking about this as a religious industrial complex,
Mm.
much like we would take on big oil. This is where the true indoctrination exists in the United States. It's not in public schools, it's in these mega churches.
Well, and there's something to be gained from shutting your brain off. Just like for Angie, you said she didn't have autonomy. She had a plan laid out for her. Well, obviously, then you lose your freedom, but you've got a plan. You don't have to, what you're supposed to do. And there is a kind of comfort that comes with that. And you see the same thing from the Trump people. It's always like, well, trust the plan. I trust Trump, right? If Trump says it's good, then it's good.
Yeah,
I don't have to. I don't have to think about it more. Like I have my answer. There's something that's appealing to people about that.
I totally agree. And I think that they're kind of primed for that. And, you know, the one thing that I see the biggest link is the lack of critical thinking and believing crazy things. Like I always believe that an extraordinary claim requires extraordinary evidence.
Mhm.
And if you apply that to the Bible or any religion, the religion's going to fall apart. And that's why they go, you have to have faith. And Trump requires that same type of blind faith and blind obedience. But I think it even goes deeper than that. And there is such a cruelty to religion, at least the religion that I grew up around. I know that there are probably some listeners of your podcast that are maybe Christian light and they're spiritual and they don't believe the earth is 5,000 years old. That's not the way it is in the Bible Belt. There's a real inherent cruelty to telling little kids that if you don't believe this way and you don't act a certain way, you're going to go to hell and burn. And these demons in hell are going to torture you. My classmates started telling me this when I was 5 and 6 years old, that
Wow.
if your family doesn't get saved, you're going to burn in hell forever. But God loves you. He loves you unconditionally. So think about the mind fuck that is. The person that loves you so much and has this amazing plan for you. If you don't worship him exactly the way he wants to, he's going to torture you. So it's inherently very cruel. And I think if you look to that psychological case for that, and then look at what MAGA is, it's not just that they think they're better than everybody, but they also like cruelty. Like, I can't stand triple Trumpers. I'm just going to go on record and say, I fucking hate them. But I'm going to vote for Lindsey Graham whenever he wants to come out of the closet to live in a place with equal rights. I'm going to
Mm.
vote for Moses Mike Johnson if he ever wants to come out of the closet so he can have an open gay relationship where nobody's checking his porn.
Mhm.
That's the difference. I dislike them, but I don't want them to suffer because I can clearly tell that they're suffering. But MAGA people and evangelical Christians, that type of reward punishment binary thought, they're so simpatico.
Yeah, the acceptance of the gaslighting is just wild to me. And you think about that with like the Epstein files, where beforehand Trump was like, "We're going to release the Epstein files," and now he's like, "It's a Democrat hoax and everybody should move on." And they just at the drop of a hat just immediately flip on it. And here's what I struggle with. Trump knows what he's doing. Like he knows he's lying, he knows he's full of shit. And the reason I struggle with that is because that's evil to me. And for the longest time, I think if you're somebody who's liberal and on the left, you think, oh, everybody's generally the same and they mean well and they're trying their best and we're all like just doing the best we can with what we have here. But no, you have to grapple with the fact that this is genuinely bad faith. This is a guy who's a con artist. He scams people. He knows he scams people and he doesn't care because he's going to get his. I mean, that crypto coin he ran on his own supporters, that scam 2 days before his inauguration. What do you make? Tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars off his own supporters? Like that's just evil. There's no other word for that.
I mean, there's no question about it. There is a thing. This is where I think that the difference between the right and the left is right now. The right's whole identity has morphed into owning the libs and punishing the libs. And Donald Trump and then all of the sycophants below him, they like to traffic in cruelty. But here's what bugs the shit out of me, you guys. Donald Trump has always been a prick. He's always been evil. He's always been a malignant narcissist. Decade after decade after decade after decade, it's unchanging. I mean, this guy is so insecure. Before he was ever in politics, he would call journalists with scoop on himself impersonating somebody else to like try to plant favorable
Right.
stories. Like,
Right.
how insecure is that? I mean, it's just wildly insecure. And Donald Trump is such a piece of shit, but he's consistently been a piece of shit. What's going to remain? And this guy is 85 million years old. He's got ankles as wide as the Nile River. He looks like hammered dog shit. You can only imagine what he would look like without that horrible makeup on his hair, I mean, on his face. He's this is all a very short-sighted thing. He's quacking like a duck. He's a lame duck, dementia set in. But all of these people, the Marco Rubios, the JD Vances, all of these people a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, had an inkling of conviction, an inkling of, maybe they were neocons, maybe they were hawkish, maybe they like to, masturbate to their stock portfolio. I'm not saying these are great guys, right? But they could call out how evil Trump was. And what's going to remain is the moral duplicity of these men. And I think that there are two big cover-ups going on in the MAGA movement. Of course, first, number one is the Jeffrey Epstein. The second biggest cover-up in the MAGA movement right now is that these men are masculine. I have never seen a group of men that quantify masculinity as much as MAGA men. Charlie Kirk talks about it nonstop. Who has testosterone? Who doesn't have testosterone? Have you ever seen this person feminine, that person feminine? Don't even get me started on Press Pants Jesse Waters. I mean, the homoeroticism in the MAGA movement is unbelievable because Donald Trump is so unattractive. Yet they're deeply attracted to him. So they have to Photoshop these pictures of him. And it's this really weird masculine space. And I recorded a podcast earlier now, and I think we need to stop calling the right podcasting space the manosphere and call it the winosphere. Because it was wine. It's just like it's this party of men and then women who fall prey to the patriarchy, internalized sexism, and they want to cover up for the shortcomings, emphasis on the word short, and that side of the political party.
They call him daddy. To your point, there's compilations of them calling him daddy.
This
Jesse
has become
Waters
like a normal part of their discourse. It's bizarre.
And like you said, that's the most beta thing I've ever seen in my life, but yet they still pretend like they're masculine.
And homoerotic.
Yeah. Hey guys, we had an awesome conversation with Jennifer Welch of the I've Had It podcast. She's doing real great work over there, and we really enjoyed it. So definitely sign up below on Substack. You don't want to miss it. It was an awesome conversation.